Welcome back to a year of overlooked horror. This episode drops us into 1993, a year where horror was mutating fast, caught between studio polish, late-era franchises, and some truly strange straight-to-video experiments. These are the films that filled the back rows of the rental store. Tech nightmares, creature features, grimy thrillers, and atmospheric oddities that slipped past the mainstream. Some were familiar names, others were barely explained by their box art, but all of them reflect a moment when horror was testing its limits, before the genre fully shifted gears in the mid-90s. Ghost in the Machine, 1993. Serial killer Carl Hockman, known as the Address Book Killer, dies in a car crash and is accidentally digitized during an MRI scan amid an electrical storm. His consciousness fuses with the city's power grid and early computer networks, allowing him to continue killing without a physical body. From inside the system, he begins stalking single mother Terry Monroe and her young son, turning everyday technology, appliances, traffic systems, into weapons. Rachel Talalay directs this pre-internet technophobia thriller with restless energy and uneven confidence. Karen Allen grounds the film as Terry, selling the escalating paranoia with determination and vulnerability, while Will Horneff gives the story its emotional core as her tech-savvy son. Chris Mulkey appears as a skeptical detective, slowly realizing that the murders don't follow any rational logic. The film's strongest moments come from its practical mayhem. Exploding microwaves, flaming hand dryers, electrical surges, and grisly appliance-related deaths deliver genuine impact. Early CGI used to visualize the killer's digital presence is far less effective, clashing with the grounded destruction and pulling tension away whenever it takes over. Ghost in the Machine aims high and stumbles often, but its ambition is undeniable. It's a messy, campy artifact of early 90s digital paranoia, more fascinating than frightening. But the inventive kills and absurd confidence make it a memorable guilty pleasure for fans of tech-gone-wrong horror. Man's Best Friend, 1993. A television journalist sneaks into a genetic research lab to expose animal cruelty and unintentionally frees a massive Tibetan Mastiff named Max. Engineered with DNA from multiple species, the dog possesses enhanced speed, camouflage, agility, and lethal instincts. Protective toward his rescuer but violently hostile to perceived threats, Max becomes increasingly dangerous as his creator hunts him down. John LaFia directs a strange hybrid of creature feature and satire, never fully settling on a tone. Ali Sheedy brings warmth and sincerity to the role of an unwitting owner in Over Her Head, while Lance Henriksen looms over the film as the obsessive scientist who views Max as both masterpiece and property. Their performances help stabilize a story that frequently veers between camp and cruelty. The real appeal lies in the practical effects. Trained dogs, puppetry, mechanical rigs, and Kevin Yeager's makeup work give Max convincing physical presence. The kills are surprisingly nasty. Acid attacks, brutal maulings, and a particularly infamous animal-related moment that cements the film's cult reputation. Man's Best Friend never quite becomes the sharp satire it reaches for, but it commits fully to its premise. It's goofy, uneven, and undeniably entertaining, standing as a quintessential 90s creature feature powered by practical effects and unapologetic excess. Ticks, 1993. A group of troubled inner-city teens heads into the California wilderness for a therapeutic retreat, only to encounter a forest overrun by giant mutated ticks. Dumped steroids from a nearby marijuana operation have transformed the parasites into aggressive, fast-growing monsters, turning the trip into a desperate fight for survival. Tony Randell directs with solid pacing and a firm grip on creature chaos. A young Seth Green stands out as a traumatized teen struggling with fear, while Alfonso Ribeiro brings swagger and energy to the group. Clint Howard steals scenes as a deranged local, whose warnings go ignored until it's far too late. The tick effects are the main attraction. Oversized puppets crawl, latch on, and burrow beneath skin before erupting in slimy bursts of body horror. Animatronics and prosthetics keep everything tactile and disgusting, far outshining the era's digital effects. Tix delivers exactly what its title promises. It's loud, gross, and unapologetically silly. A pure 90s creature feature fueled by practical ingenuity and relentless commitment to its ridiculous premise. Amityville, A New Generation, 1993. Young artist Keys Terry receives a mysterious antique mirror from a homeless man, a forgotten relic from 112 Ocean Avenue. It awakens suppressed memories, drives immoral impulses, and erodes free will. As supernatural influence spreads, friends and lovers face deadly manifestations tied to buried horrors. John Merlowski blends psychological allegory with horror, evil exploits, personal flaws, and trauma. Ross Partridge's Keys descends into obsession, while Julian Nixon's Suki and Lala Sloatman's Laney provide emotional anchors. Mirror effects, warped reflections, independent images create intimate, disorienting dread. It deepens the lore. Malevolence migrates through objects, reshapes hosts, thrives on human weakness and hidden sins. A thoughtful entry that examines how the Amityville evil adapts, infiltrating new lives and forcing confrontation with the past. Warlock, The Armageddon, 1993. The Warlock is reborn through a grotesque ritual and sets out to collect 6 ancient runestones that will allow him to summon Satan and trigger Armageddon. Standing in his way are 2 teenagers descended from druid bloodlines, forced to embrace inherited powers before the final stone is claimed. Anthony Hickox abandons the original film's time travel hook in favor of full supernatural excess. Julian Sands returns with gleeful menace, relishing the character's cruelty and dark humor. The young leads provide enough emotional grounding to balance the escalating carnage. Practical effects drive the spectacle. Victims are flayed, impaled, twisted, and obliterated in increasingly elaborate set pieces. Each kill escalates the chaos, building toward a finale packed with demonic imagery, pyrotechnics, and magical combat. The Armageddon fully embraces its identity as a louder, bloodier sequel. It's ridiculous, vicious, and proudly excessive, exactly the kind of 90s horror escalation that knows fun matters more than restraint. Necronomicon, 1993. Structured as an anthology, the film frames its stories around a young H.P. Lovecraft sneaking into a forbidden monastic library to read the infamous Necronomicon. As he turns its pages, 3 loosely adapted tales unfold, each exploring resurrection, unnatural survival, and ancient cosmic horrors, while the wraparound narrative escalates toward monstrous chaos. Multiple directors bring distinct tones to the segments, including Brian Yuzna, Christoph Gans, and Shusuke Kaneko. Jeffrey Combs anchors the film as Lovecraft himself, playing the role with sly intensity that connects naturally to his Reanimator legacy. Supporting performances from Bruce Payne, Belinda Bauer, and David Warner add weight to the otherwise uneven collection. The true stars are the practical effects. Melting flesh, writhing tentacles, bat-like creatures, and grotesque transformations dominate the screen with wet, tactile detail. Effects teams, led by Screaming Mad George, deliver some of the most shamelessly gooey visuals of early 90s horror, even when budget limitations show. Necronomicon is ambitious, messy, and proudly excessive. It sacrifices subtle, cosmic dread for splatter and spectacle, but its enthusiasm and effects-driven creativity have earned it cult affection as a chaotic love letter to Lovecraft filtered through peak-era Yuzna insanity. Skinner, 1993. Ted Raimi stars as Dennis Skinner, a drifter who rents a room from a married couple while quietly murdering victims by skinning them alive. Calm, precise, and utterly detached, he moves through his routine without guilt. One survivor, left scarred but alive, begins tracking him with the same cold determination he applies to his crimes. Ivan Nagy directs with unapologetic sleaze, refusing to soften the material. Raimi sheds his usual likability entirely, delivering a performance that's restrained, unsettling, and deeply unpleasant. Ricky Lake brings vulnerability to the oblivious landlady, while Tracy Lords injects raw intensity as the vengeful survivor spiraling through addiction and rage. The violence is explicit and deliberately uncomfortable. Skinning sequences linger, rendered with detailed prosthetics and methodical pacing. Every act feels clinical rather than chaotic, forcing the audience to sit with the brutality instead of cutting away from it. Skinner offers no redemption or catharsis. It's bleak, nasty, and confrontational, an exploitation film that doubles as a character study. For viewers willing to engage with its extremity, it leaves a lasting, grim impression. Trauma, 1993. Argento's first American production follows a young anorexic woman who witnesses her parents' beheading by a serial killer using an automated decapitation device. She teams with a TV news cameraman to investigate murders connected to a group therapy session years earlier, where someone is systematically eliminating the participants. Shot in Minneapolis rather than Argento's usual Italian locations, the film loses some of his typical visual flair, but maintains his interest in elaborate murder set pieces. The automated decapitation device is memorably grotesque practical effect, heads rolling in rain-soaked sequences. The mystery involves repressed memory and identity, with Argento exploring trauma's impact on perception and the lengths people go to bury painful truth. The film's American production brought English-language dialogue and more conventional thriller pacing, making it accessible to broader audiences while sacrificing some of Argento's trademark excess. Trauma marked his attempt to conquer the American market, with mixed results. The film works as effective thriller but lacks the visual poetry and operatic intensity of his Italian masterworks. Dark Waters, 1993. After her father's death, a young woman travels to a remote island convent to uncover why he secretly funded the isolated monastery. The building is ancient and decaying, the nuns disturbingly silent, and the rituals practiced within suggest something far older than Christianity. As she investigates, her family's connection to the place reveals a lineage steeped in forbidden knowledge. Mariano Bino's debut leans heavily into atmosphere. Shot in post-Soviet Ukraine, the film uses crumbling architecture, endless rain, and candlelit corridors to create constant unease. Louise Salter carries the film with quiet resolve, navigating a world that feels both medieval and timeless. The horror emerges gradually. Practical creature effects appear sparingly but effectively, grotesque and organic when they finally surface. Baino prioritizes implication over explanation, blending body horror with cosmic dread and psychological pressure. Dark Waters unfolds at a deliberate pace, favoring texture and mood over clarity. It's a slow-burn occult film that rewards patience, standing as a cult favorite for viewers drawn to Lovecraftian atmosphere and oppressive imagery. The Washing Machine, 1993. Three sisters share a rundown Budapest apartment and compete for the attention of their manipulative lover. When his dismembered body is discovered inside their washing machine, a police inspector arrives to investigate, only for the corpse to vanish without explanation. Each woman offers a different version of events, pulling him deeper into deception. Ruggero Deodato directs this late-era Giallo with sleazy confidence, using post-communist Budapest as a grimy, claustrophobic backdrop. The actresses play the sisters with seductive unpredictability, keeping the story deliberately unstable as domestic spaces become psychological traps. Violence is used sparingly but effectively. Mangled body parts and sudden revelations punctuate the film, while the real horror comes from erotic tension, unreliable narration, and mounting unease. The washing machine itself becomes an object of dread through repetition. The washing machine is messy, trashy, and strangely hypnotic. It prioritizes atmosphere and provocation over logic, standing as a memorable Euro-cult oddity for viewers willing to embrace ambiguity, sleaze, and late-period Giallo excess. If you love discovering forgotten horror and cult cinema, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the films time forgot. Thanks for watching, and remember, always be kind and rewind, because every movie is someone's favorite.